We're joined right now on RailerCulture.com by Kevin Hirsch. Kevin is the Executive Director of the Inland Terminal Association. Welcome today, Kevin.
Thanks, Sean.
Kevin, I've been reading, I guess, in some of the farm publications that if the single desk with the Canadian Wheat Board is to go away next summer, it really could speak the doom of the inland terminals we have in Western Canada. As Executive Director of that association, what's your opinion on that?
Well, there's 10 members in ITAC, the Inland Terminal Association of Canada. The members are each of them at least 50% owned by producers. And certainly the ITAC members have some concerns over how things will look after the single desk of the Canadian Wheat Board is eliminated. We've been working to address those concerns with government and the Transitional Task Force looking at CWB changes. And, a large part will depend upon just how the regulatory environment looks when the single desk is ended. One of the things is port access. Some of our members, through their marketing arrangements and minority ownership by the mainline grain companies, have access to port terminals. Several of our members are in a co-ownership position of Alliance Grain, but some of the ITAC members have no direct ownership of port terminals. And we're making the argument that that's one of the pieces of the puzzle that we need to examine. Australia has put in some measures to guarantee access at a reasonable price to terminal facilities. Otherwise, you could potentially get into a situation where an independent terminal without port access would have a very difficult time competing.
What's been the government's response to that request?
We met with Minister Ritz in mid-July and made that point to him, and have subsequently followed up with more information. So we believe that the government understands that concern, that you don't want people in a commercial environment when everybody wants your business at the terminals. It's maybe not a problem, but if a terminal capacity was a limiting factor, if it's only held by a very few players, it could be a competitive disadvantage, and there should be rules in place to address that. So we're very hopeful that the government will do that, as well as a number of other measures that we're asking for.
Okay, so we covered port access. What else? What's another one of the challenges?
Well, another challenge, and it'll be for all companies, but especially for inland terminals that maybe don't have as deep a pockets, is financing the purchase of wheat, durum, and export barley. So we believe that the government is exploring some financing options so that that can be done, because that will be a large outlay of money that didn't have to be made before, because it was brought through the Canadian Wheat Board as the marketing agent. So that's important. Overriding the whole thing, and important for every player, is to make sure the government continues on its rail service review route, where they were talking about template agreements for rail service, because none of this matters very much if you can't get product moved when you need to. And we really must not lose sight of the whole rail review process that had a good start and it was going in the right direction before the last federal election. And we hope that momentum can continue, because it's important for the entire grain industry.
Yeah, and I guess, is that likely, are some of those changes to the rail service, is that likely to happen at the sort of the same time or the same period, so that we can enact some of those changes that need to be made to kind of make this transition to kind of a new wheat marketing scheme much smoother?
We believe that's the government's intent, although it may be difficult for the government to get all of the things happening at the same time. Another thing that's important is changes and alterations to the mandate of the Canadian Grain Commission, and we believe the government's working on that as well. But, the grain grading system shouldn't be an impediment to a competitive environment in doing business. For instance, if somebody wants to contract a special type of wheat grown in Canada for an American customer, the rules shouldn't prevent that. And when we are operating under a different system, we think we might need a different set of some of the rules that fall under the Canadian Grain Commission's mandate as well.
So if there's a financing plan put in place by the government, and there's some sort of port access, I guess, made mandatory or given to groups like the Inland Terminal Association to be able to compete. Do you see a bright future in this new market for the Inland Terminal Association?
I think the ITAC members see both challenges and opportunities. We realize that the large line companies have very large marketing networks around the world that the inland terminals don't have unless they find ways to access those kind of marketing channels. But by the same token, they may be able to specialize or find a domestic North American market that they can service well. They may, depending upon their location and their crop mix and their customer farmer loyalty, may be able to find niches in the marketplace that didn't exist before. So I think it's, everybody thinks there's going to be a lot of changes and things will be going in a lot of directions we never anticipated. But I think it would be safe to say that the ITAC members see challenges, but they also see opportunities.
One of the things that some of the scuttlebutt I had heard is that, and you may be able to comment to this one, you may not be able to, is the idea that the inland terminals are actually a natural partner for the Wheat Board because the inland terminals have assets, which Alan Oberg has been complaining is a huge problem for them. And the Wheat Board has merchants all over the world, which is obviously something, as you just identified, is lacking for the inland terminals. What's your comment on that?
Well, there are no direct discussions going on, to partner directly with the Canadian Wheat Board over and above anyone else. As people brainstorm about what may happen, that potential has not been lost on the ITAC members. But, for the Canadian Wheat Board could also partner with a Viterra or James Richardson International to do the same thing, and would have a much larger network to pull from than the 10 ITAC members. So, to the best of my knowledge, there's no official discussions going on about, the Inland Terminal Association becoming the logistics arm of a revamped Canadian Wheat Board. Frankly, there doesn't seem to be nearly as much work going on as to what the Canadian Wheat Board will become as that perhaps should be.
Well, I definitely follow you there. That's been kind of my complaint or criticism since the beginning of this process, is that I'm not enough looking forward. But I guess finally, to wrap up, provide some context for people that aren't as necessarily familiar with the inland terminals. You had mentioned there's 10 of them.
10 farm-owned terminals, yeah.
What percent of the grain would they handle?
Well, in germane to this discussion, they proportionately higher percentage of Canadian Wheat Board grains, where they've only had to be the marketing agent. And in very rough terms, depending upon the year and how you calculate it, probably handle about 10% of the grains that have been marketed through the Canadian Wheat Board.
Great. Well, Kevin, thank you very much for taking the time and your answers, and we look forward to talking to you, and good luck in the future with the inland terminals.
Thanks very much, Sean.